I'll call the Murray City Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, May 16th, 2024. It's 6:30 p.m. Present this evening are Commissioners Lisa Milkevich, Michael Richards, Michael Henry, myself, Ned Hacker. I'm the Vice Chair. The Chairman, Maren Patterson, is excused tonight. And continuing on, Jake Pearson, Pete Herto, and Zach Smallwood, and Mustafa Al-Janabi, and in the audience there is Mark Richardson, our Assistant City Attorney. So I'd like to welcome everybody, public attending our meeting tonight. We're always grateful to have public here, have you participate. Some etiquette items. First, I ask that you take a moment and silence your cell phones if you have one. When time comes for any comments, we'll have you come to the podium and ask you to provide your name and address for our minutes. Once an item has been gone over, you're welcome to leave your particular agenda item that you're here to speak to or listen to. You're invited to leave. We just ask that if you leave, you quietly do that so we can continue. If you're reviewing this meeting online on the live stream, the only way to make a public comment is to email planningcommission@murray.utah.gov. So if you're watching it on Facebook, YouTube, you won't be able to comment through those means. All right, so on to our agenda items. We've got 6 items, regular housekeeping items. We have some new business for a fence project. We have a subdivision review, and the Planning Commission, after that's all done, is going to talk about some policies and procedures. So first agenda item, approval of minutes. I'd ask the commissioners if you've had a chance to review the minutes from Thursday, April 4th, 2024, and if you have any comments.
No comments.
Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move that we accept the minutes from the Thursday, April 4th, 2024, 6:30 p.m. meeting as written in the minutes.
All right, I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. There's conflict of interest, item number 2 on our agenda. There's one, any conflict of interest?
No.
Of this group?
No.
Or any agenda items? All right. And we've got one finding of fact in agenda item number 3, Apollo Marble and Granite. I'd ask if commissioners had opportunity to review that, and if you have any comments. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the findings of facts for Apollo Marble and Granite.
All right, I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any comments?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, passed. And our first business item, we've addressed it as item number 4 on the agenda, new business. Jason Hindman for a fence height exception request. And Zach is going to give us a little staff update before we talk about it.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair Hacker. This is a request from Jason Hinman for a fence height exception. So it's located at his property is at 6010 South Afton Avenue, which is right here. So this is Fashion Boulevard on your left. I believe this is some dental offices, and it's an office building. It was built probably in the 70s or 80s, I would assume. It's an older building. And Mr. Hindman lives at this property. He emailed in April and asked if he could have an 8-foot fence. And the code here does allow 17.64.090. Subsection D says the planning commission is authorized to grant additional fence height for buffer fencing between commercial and residential zoning districts to a maximum of 8 feet. However, typically how we approach this is when it comes through as like a general office or a new building through that, the planning commission then permits up to an 8-foot fence. We don't have a mechanism to really approve that any other way. So in consultation with the attorney's office, we are going to move forward with a text amendment to allow residents to go up to 8 feet when they are adjacent to commercial zoning. But in the meantime, I didn't want to have him wait until the summer's over to put a new fence in. So we, the attorney's office recommended that we do it this way. Just bring it to you as a new business item. And pretty simply, that's it. So we are recommending that the planning commission approve Mr. Hinman's request for a rear yard fence height exception up to 8 feet for the property located at 6010 South Afton Avenue, as allowed in section 17.64.090 D fence height exceptions. Any questions?
Any questions for staff? Is the applicant here? Okay.
I told him he didn't have to be here.
Yeah,
because
and it's not really a application per se, so, okay. Any discussion? I'll take,
I
Go
guess
ahead.
just one comment, and we talked about this earlier, but it seems to me like it would be appropriate to have, even if it's just memo format, something that the chairman of the commission signed that said we had approved this.
I mean, we can, the attorney's office and I can figure that out afterwards. Typically, we don't
I would
take,
think something just a little more concrete than the record of the minutes, but
so
Yeah.
for most
whatever. The
agenda
attorney said, I
items,
guess.
we'll do a finding of fact, and
Yeah.
we could probably do that for this as well.
we can at least do
I
something.
would kind of recommend that we do that. That
Yeah.
was kind of where I was
So-
going.
I'll look into the best avenue to do, because findings of fact, it talks about appeal procedure and things like that, and this isn't really something that's really appealable.
Well, yeah, I don't know that it
So,
needs to be
yeah.
a finding of fact, but something that shows an affirmative approval by the commission.
Yep, I'll work with the attorney's office in drafting something. It might just be a simple letter, so.
All right, any other comments? Entertain a motion.
Mr. Vice Chair, I'll make a motion that the Planning Commission approve Mr. Heinman's request for a rear yard fence height exception up to 8 feet for the property located at 6010 South Afton Avenue, as allowed in section 17.64.090D, fence height exceptions.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
And is there any additional discussion? No. All right, Zach, could you take a,
I'll do
By
a
name
roll
vote.
call, yeah. Commissioner Richards,
Yes.
Commissioner Milkovich,
Yes.
Commissioner Henry,
Yes,
Commissioner Haristo,
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson.
Yes.
And Vice Chair Hacker.
yes. All right, passed. Agenda item number 5, subdivision review, Pontiac subdivision amended and extended. So Zach, you're going to present this?
Yes. Thank you again. This is a request by a couple parties to amend the existing Arrowhead Lane, vacate the existing Arrowhead Lane condominiums. So that would be located in this area that I am drawing on the screen. So right now, there is Arrowhead Lane condominiums and the Pontiac subdivision, which is in the lower right-hand corner of the selected properties. They are all in the GO zone, which is the general office zone. On the map here, you can see the existing plat. There are a number of condoed units that are on the plat here, with some common area in between. In 2020, UEA came forward and requested a withdrawal of a portion of this plat to create the Pontiac subdivision, which it allowed them to build their new headquarter building off 9th East. And then the next step of that was to, originally was to withdraw additional space and extend Pontiac subdivision. However, things have changed a little bit over time, and the properties are being, all the condo properties are being proposed to be vacated. So the whole condominium subdivision will be removed, and it will just become what is on your screen now, the proposed plat. So it'll just become a 2-lot subdivision instead of a 1-lot subdivision in the Pontiac subdivision. It's really, there's a lot of legalese to it. Staff did verify that the properties do meet the requirements of the GO zoning, with appropriate side yard, rear yard, and front yard setbacks, open space requirements, all that fun stuff. Parking for both buildings is adequate. So it's everything, really, this becomes a lot of just legal stuff. So with that, we are recommending approval, subject to the 6 conditions on the screen. Any questions?
Any commissioners have questions for staff?
One that just occurred to me, you say in your review with the power department, there's an underground power line that might be affected. I assume none of these changes are going to affect any easements then either. Okay.
So funny enough, I did talk to DJ in the power department. There's not an easement where the power line is currently. It just connects to the building. And what I think we anticipate is that in the future, they will use this easement line here that already exists to relocate some power. But that's not part of this application, and they'll work through it with power.
Can you put the conditions back up?
Oh, yeah.
I had a question about condition 1B. All engineering in Salt Lake County review comments prior to printing the plat. Where can those be found?
So the engineering ones are found on our website, but it's also part of their review. So they'll do a review and they'll provide comments back to the applicant. And so then they go through and address each of those comments.
So the applicant will have easy access to those requirements, because it's a little vague right there.
Yeah, and it's intended to be. Yeah, so they'll go through and check, like all the lines match up and things like that. Any PUEs, they need public utility easements. And so they'll review it, send them comments, and then it's a back and forth game.
Okay. All right. Usually on our conditions, we have something that's more precise, but if it has a process to get it covered and the applicant understands it?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, anything else? Is the applicants here this evening? And you can all speak, or you can have one speaker. Please come forward, state your name and your address for the record.
John Morris, 77 South Union Park Center. I'm here on behalf of the Utah Education Association. We don't have anything to say unless you have any questions. It's a pretty simple process.
You've been able to review these conditions, and are you be able to comply with them?
Yes,
Okay.
we will jump through whatever hoops exist.
All right. All right. Any questions from the commission? All right.
There are
Thank you.
one other applicant if you want to.
Sure.
Yeah,
I don't necessarily have anything substantive to add, other than we support the application, and I represent two of the property owners, Valcon Properties and
And what is
Ketzell
your name
Properties.
and provide an address for just our record?
Yeah,
if you would.
Tyler Lamar, 5292 College Drive,
Thank you.
Murray.
All right,
Yeah, all three property owners, your two property owners today, were included in your packet. The owner affidavits that were on there included both of those.
all right, we had pretty good discussion in our pre-meeting this evening. Any commissioners have comments you'd like to make? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion for this agenda item. You're right, you got to do a public comment. So before we take a motion, I'll open this meeting for public comment and ask Zach and if we've had any public comments prior to tonight.
Prior to tonight, I did have quite a number of phone calls. No written comments, just phone calls. Mostly just the notice sounded probably a little bit scarier than it really is. Because vacating and condos and withdrawing and amending. So had a few phone calls and walked them through the process. And everybody seemed good with it. And they were like, why are you sending me a notice for them to change their property lines? I'm like, I'm sorry, I just have to. So, yeah, so that's really it.
All right. Any public comment from our audience tonight? And I'd ask if you'd check any records for comments that may have come in from listeners on our live stream. Okay. Comments?
Yeah, I'm Glenn Bancroft. I live at 5195 South, 860 East. So one of the neighbors. And I may have the same questions that some of the other property owners have had, but just kind of curious what the purpose of this. And we've gone through two phases. One where they built a new building after redrawn property lines. What's the purpose of this next phase? Is the, after you approve the redrawing of the property lines, is there going to be additional construction or new buildings being constructed there?
All right, thank you. Any other comments from people who are here? Zach, do you want to answer that, or you
Yeah,
can have applicant
Definitely,
answer?
because that's exactly what the phone calls
Yep.
were about. And at this time, we don't have any applications for any new buildings or anything of that nature. This is really, the purpose of this is to clean up, I believe what it is to clean up the property lines that were previously held by UEA. They had like a section, an office condo, a unit in there that they still own, so they're kind of adding that back into their property. So I'll kind of show you here. So for example, all of this here in the red was owned by UEA. And then all of this was owned by UEA. And then this is considered, in a condo, it's considered common area. So it's shared between all the property owners here. And then what they're doing is kind of divvying that up a little bit more between, so they're getting rid of that office condo. So this part of the building will still stay. It's just not indicated because it's not part of a condo subdivision anymore. So this building is still gonna stay for the time being. I don't know any plans and have not heard anything to the contrary. But then UEA will become the owner of this property and can finish up their construction, their site improvements, their parking improvements. So really, it's just cleaning up some property between two property owners is really what they're getting at.
And the fact that it used to be one property owner, now there are multiple property owners.
Oh, and question. Some of those old property lines, though, were all relevant to the building that has been demolished, right?
Yeah, so
They're not relevant anymore.
Yeah,
do you
this
think?
section here has been completely demoed. So, yeah, you could walk 5 feet and go across 4 different properties.
But you're also eliminating the condominium status, right,
Yes.
of the previous formation.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
All right, any
And
other
if-
public comment?
I was just going to say, if you have any questions, just come up to me afterwards. I'm happy to talk through it.
All right, I'll close the public comment period and come back to the commission and see if you want to discuss some more, or I'll entertain a motion now.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, recommend that the Planning Commission grant approval vacating the Arrowhead Lane condominium subdivision and amend and extend the Pontiac subdivision on the properties 864, 872, 874, 875, 878, and 887 East Arrowhead Lane, subject to the provisions set forth below.
All right, I have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there an additional comment, discussion? All right, Zach, could you take a voice vote?
Yeah, Commissioner Haristo,
Yes.
Commissioner Henry,
Yes.
Commissioner Richards,
Yes.
Commissioner Milkovich,
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Hacker.
Yes. All right, congratulations to the applicants. Look forward to seeing what other
No.
improvements we have on that property. Thank you. All right, our last agenda item is a discussion for the Planning Commission and the staff. If you want to stay for this, you're more than welcome. If not, have a great evening. All right, Zach, I'll turn this over to you.
Yeah, so this is kind of just an initial kickoff to talk about the policies, procedures, and protocols of the Planning Commission. Every once in a while, these were last looked at in 2019, was the last revision date. So I figured it's been 5 years, so let's have a good look. So as you'll see on your packet, I've provided the list of, or the current stuff. Sorry, I'm getting to that. So really what we're trying to do is just get you familiar with them and see if you have recommendations for updates. As I said in the pre-meeting, this is really the only slide I have. Just some recommended additions that we would be working with, which is conflict of interest declaration, what constitutes a conflict of interest, to help kind of spell that out, so that if you guys have questions, we can actually go to something and you as a body and us as staff have worked together to determine what a conflict of interest truly is, right? Listing out procedures for motions, that was one of the good ones that I found in the Salt Lake one. Theirs is so detailed. We probably won't go that detailed, but it was really good. Adjournment, I don't know if you guys know this, but for adjournment, all you have to do, just one person has to make a motion, and then as long as the chair doesn't receive a objection, they're adjourned. You don't have to have a motion and a second and all favor say aye. It's usually just, I move to adjourn at this time, and then and the chair will usually ask, are there any objections? None, we're adjourned. But again, that's not laid out anywhere. So something like that. One thing I had in Midvale, and is both in the ones that I was reviewing at Mill Creek and Salt Lake, is when voting no on an application, explaining why you're voting that way, providing an explanation as to why you're having that vote. And then also
Is that as a commission or individually?
individually.
I like the idea in theory because people can understand the process. I also could see how that could set us up for more legal issues if it's not explained well or misexplained.
No, and I think mostly it's just for documentation and especially to know what the reasoning is so that and it actually could end up helping something in the record too, right? if there was, say like there was just for an example, like a conditional use permit, right? And you guys voted no on everything and didn't explain anything, right? Maybe there was a real, truly legitimate reason why you voted no. Then we don't have that in the record, right? But if you're voting no on something, then, and you're saying like, due to, I don't know, environmental impacts or something that cannot be mitigated, then that could also bolster an appeal decision. And goes a long way in explaining something like that. But I do take your point. It could,
Years ago, when we had a lawsuit, the complainant quoted Marin and Bucky.
yeah.
We lost that appeal. I don't remember exactly the topic, but I know sometimes I feel like my words are guarded to make sure I'm presenting correctly, and that wouldn't.
Yep. And then the last one is just kind of a section on ethics. We give you guys a training, when you first start. And then we kind of have trainings every once in a while, but like, we don't have anywhere exactly what ex parte communications are, right? We don't have those listed anywhere. So putting in something like that, just so, it's not really anything to like punish anybody or, use it against anybody. It's really just so that those are listed so that when a new commissioner comes on, or you guys can reference it, yeah.
That's good.
Because a lot of times, we can forget things, right? And a lot of stuff isn't written down. There's lots of stuff out there that, it's been my goal, it seems, this year to write things down. So, I'm working on process documents and, how to process applications, all that fun stuff. Doesn't matter. But I'm trying to help keep everything pretty clear so that we don't have some of these more, when somebody wants to declare a conflict of interest, we can say, okay, here's what they are. So, thoughts?
There are there are 2 pages in the zoning ordinance that address planning and zoning commission. How many items? 10 items. Appointments, geographical representation, some other different things, which is mostly administrative towards how people are appointed and where they come from.
Yep.
That was one comment I had for the policies and procedures was item number 2, officers and duties, and thinking, maybe that could be a place to put an additional few sentences of how many commissioners there are, where they come from, representing each of the districts within the city.
Definitely.
However, I mean, it's spelled out a little bit in the zoning ordinance.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was one comment, is just maybe for clarification.
Yeah, I don't think it hurts at all to double it up. That way, you guys don't have to go digging through the code to find something when it could be just easily reachable on, something you have.
Another thought, kind of along the same lines of where the information exists. The first page, number C, under meetings, at the end of the sentence, it says, as provided by law. So notifications is given as provided by law. Should we have a reference there or a link, or where are those laws? Which laws are we referring to?
That's one of the same comments
Yeah.
I had. Yeah, what's the requirement?
I mean, I think that's different though, depending on what we're gonna meet for. I think that's probably why it's pretty vague, because you're gonna have to notify, depending on what it is, you're gonna have to notify
Yeah.
different people, and it's going to be.
There will be there's state statute that we could reference for sure,
As-
that mention open and public meeting. Really, that's the really big one. It probably should say, provided by the Open and Public Meetings Act, which is technically where a lot of, what we have to do for bringing up meetings.
And there's a little bit of that at the very end of this, item number 5, administrative issues, which I had comment there too, but that Public Meetings Act, that's a yearly requirement by the state. It might go there in that administrative issues section.
Yeah, I think we'll have like a training section. That was one thing I was saying in all of them, is that it actually lays out that you guys will have 4 hours of training every year. And that, the Open and Public Meetings Act training, and then, for a total of 4 for the year. So that's probably something I'll want to add into there.
I have
Go ahead,
section-
Lisa. Go ahead.
I have
I got stuff, but I'll just wait.
What letter, what number are you? Which one?
I got all sorts of, it's
okay.
not, there's nothing big, so go ahead.
I have little things too, scroll over. Where are we?
You want to take it in order, just go down, 1, 2,
Okay,
3,
sure.
4.
So number E, order of business, I don't see findings of fact listed. Should we have a findings of fact still listed?
Amazing, isn't
Oh.
it?
And new business, I
It's
don't know.
because we're supposed to do the findings of fact. In the meeting, we pass the thing.
Before you get to new business?
No, in the meeting, we pass, we're not supposed to do it in the meeting after like we've been doing according to this.
Oh, we're supposed to do the pre-meeting?
No, we're supposed to do it in the
Oh,
meeting.
during the existing meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's actually something we'll have to talk about, because I know that
Yes.
GL, the city attorney, I think doesn't like approving them at the meeting.
I don't either. We
Yeah.
should change it. I agree.
So that's fine, yes, that's great.
We should change it to how we're doing it.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. The only reason why I question, because I asked them about that question too, because the appeal date, the appeal timeframe doesn't kick in until the written approval, which are the findings of fact.
Until that's
So if somebody were to come in and appeal a decision of the planning commission, they actually have more than the 10 days, because there's no written decision yet, unless there could be something else. Maybe because there's not a written decision, there's nothing to appeal yet. I don't know. That's a question. You don't have to answer it if you don't want to, but.
All I would say is, part of it too is your, what goes to a hearing officer on appeal is your record, and your minutes would be part of the record. And it's not often, but every once in a while, we see something that maybe wasn't quite how we remember it or typed in or, so I think it is good to have that extra time to review the minutes before they're approved. So
True.
Make sure the record is accurate. So.
Yeah.
And that is addressed in item J, decisions,
Mhm.
kind of in the middle of that first paragraph. It doesn't say that it has to be done at the meeting where
Okay.
the item is actually discussed, other than that it will be approved, and that a copy of it goes to the applicant.
That's kind of where I was coming from on that fence thing a minute ago.
Okay.
If we're gonna go down, I don't know if we're done talking about that, but I had stuff up in, up in section 2. And I don't know if this is where this would go, and maybe it's somewhere else and I missed it, but I don't know if there's anywhere that talks about the procedure if we are missing the chair and vice chair.
There isn't. That's kind of what spurred this, is because we did have that happen one meeting last year,
Yeah.
where I think, because you were chair last year,
Yep.
right, Jake?
I think
Yes.
it happened this year.
Did it?
I think so. Maren was gone, I was gone,
We postponed
and the meeting was canceled.
Oh, it was, yeah, it ended up being canceled, yeah. So, yeah, I think there should be a procedure for that to happen.
Could have been.
Yeah, just a
An
majority
election of
vote or
Yeah,
something.
an election of a pro
So I
tem.
think we should add that.
Okay.
I have a question on that, on 2 also, and maybe this is getting in the weeds a little bit, but it says the chair may not succeed him or herself in office. Does that apply to the vice chair also, or not? And
So-
I'm not hard over either way,
I don't-
but I'm just curious, what
I don't
was the
think-
intent?
I don't think so, but I mean, what we would allow is for like the chair to become the vice chair the following year, or the vice chair to become chair
Right.
the next year, but not hold the same office 2 years in a row.
Well, and it specifically says that for the chair, but
Yeah.
not the vice chair.
Yeah, it doesn't really say that for the vice chair, does it?
I mean, I think I would be okay with the vice chair staying the same.
Okay.
Because the vice chair is only acting in the, I mean, it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
I'm fine either way, but.
Yeah, I think it just ought to be maybe explicit.
Yeah,
I'm
but if-
I'm with you, I don't care either
You
way.
know, but if Ned's a great vice chair and the chair changes every year and someone wants to keep Ned as a backup, I think that's not a bad
I agree.
Commissioner
I-
Packer.
I think this is, I mean, this is term limits, so I think having a different person, chair and vice chair, every year is good
I'm fine
for
with that,
everybody,
too.
for the whole commission,
Probably,
so.
probably.
I'm not against
Chair
that
next
either.
year.
Don't threaten me.
Well, I mean, it's, I think it's a good thing.
Oh, I do too.
I'm fine with that too.
You're done? No, you had more?
Oh, I have stuff down on E, if anybody has anything up above that. Otherwise,
What did, are you jumping to E, did you say?
well, I'm going to unless someone has something above E,
On 3B,
3B.
we had talked a little bit about is 6 o'clock giving us enough time for the pre-meeting? And we
Yeah.
come back and forth. Do we want to make a decision on that?
In my opinion, I think 6 o'clock should be plenty of time.
We should just.
We
make
should be able to
it
get through
fit.
a pre-meeting because a lot of, that's what this meeting's for as well, right? We should be having a lot of conversation in this meeting and maybe not as much conversation in the pre-meeting, especially if we know, hey, we got 8 items on the agenda. In our pre-meeting, we got to spend 2 minutes per
Yeah.
agenda item. That's my opinion.
Hey, you're predicting
Well,
next
on the other hand, I don't want to take open commission time to talk about typos and grammatically changes
No,
either.
those are good comments. However, if you have a big agenda item and you discuss everything in the pre-meeting, the public doesn't
Well,
get to hear a lot of it.
Agreed.
So,
What I would recommend, and this obviously isn't something you guys have to do, but if you do have a lot of changes for the minutes, you can email those to me ahead of time. And I can, and we can send them to Rebecca ahead of time. And, of course, I know when I was in my planning commission, I didn't read it until like the night before, right? Because I was too busy. So I understand if you can't get to them in time, but you guys are more than welcome to send those over to me and I can send them and say, and I can just address, each item on it and say, yep, we took care of this one, we took care of this one, we took care of this one.
I think for me too, as a commissioner, if another commissioner says, hey, I got some typos and commas or whatever we need to fix, I don't necessarily think we need to go through those. I think I'm okay if you said, hey, I got some, typos we need to fix. I would be okay. Okay, there's some typos we need to fix.
And
I don't need to hear every
And
single
that's what
one.
I've done.
If you're gonna change what is written, then we
Yeah.
probably need to
Well,
review it.
And the only reason I asked the question, is just because somebody had talked
Sure.
about, maybe we need more time.
Yeah.
And I thought this was a good place and to
Well-
bring it up.
Well, my
I'm
thoughts
not-
on that,
I don't care. I'm
needing more time, I agree that we need to be efficient and time-wise in the pre-meeting because the bulk of the discussion needs to be out here. But on the flip, so I support limiting it, keeping it tight. But on the flip side of that, when we have, in the past, prior to when the economy was different, we'd have 13 items per agenda. And maybe if we have 13 items and we need 3 minutes per item, which is not a lot of time, so maybe, is there a way in here to put some flexibility? We can, if the agenda is huge, the chair can adjust accordingly.
Yeah, and maybe that's maybe that's something we write into the role. The chair's role is that
The
depending on.
public's,
Is there,
the public's welcome in that meeting too, right?
Oh, yeah,
just
they
don't
can,
have-
but yeah,
And I
they're
think
allowed to
that's
walk
why-
in and
Why
listen.
you're given a specific time, is
Yeah.
so you're announced ahead of time what that.
Well, it would be
Yeah.
announced ahead of time, every time. It's always addressed in the,
Then
I think in the,
if you can do that and
I'm not against
support.
giving
Lisa,
some
what-
leeway here to the chair to change that time. I would say this, though, as a commissioner, I plan on, it would be difficult for me to change all the time. So I
Yeah.
understand if there's a change needed, but.
From time to time.
But again, I think conversation should be here. If we didn't ask questions about, hey, I don't understand how this works, that's great that we can ask that in the pre-meeting.
Right.
But maybe those are questions we need to ask ahead of time. If we have 8 agenda items, maybe we shouldn't spend time on, I don't understand my job as a commissioner. not in the pre-meeting, if that makes sense.
I'm really torn about that, because I feel like the longer you've been here, the more you feel that way. But your first 2 years here, I want to hear everyone's question, because I'm learning every time someone else asks a question. So if the only time I can learn is if I call in advance, catch Zach on the phone, I mean, there's some value to learning from each other.
I'm not saying that either. I'm not saying we shouldn't ask those questions. I'm just saying, I think we generally have enough time to do everything we need. And on a meeting where we have, 8 or 12 agenda items, we might have to forego those questions in the pre-meeting.
I have a question that's kind of just because of my lack of being involved before, but if you've got 13 agenda items on any given night, are we required to get through them all, or can they be continued to the
Tabled.
next meeting?
You are required to go through them up until 10 PM.
Okay.
Once you hit 10 PM, like we have to stay on the same agenda. So if we are in the middle of an agenda item and it hits 10 PM,
Right.
we have to stay on that agenda item. But if we still have like 3 after,
Right.
I think that, I don't remember how it's worded, but the chair, and it might not even be in
That's
here.
not in here, but
It's not in here.
It's somewhere.
It is somewhere
But it's
that you
written
can,
Somewhere,
Oh,
yeah.
read that somewhere.
yeah.
It's in
in the
on
minutes, I
it's on
think.
the,
Packet, every week it says any item past
Yeah,
10 o'clock
yeah,
must be
we should probably
voted.
put it in here.
Yeah, probably. That, a motion can be made to table the rest of the items.
Okay,
But you're required till 10,
okay.
so.
Or you could make a motion to extend and finish, right, at the same time?
Well,
Or
you-
is there a-
Typically what happens, I've only seen it happen once
Oh, okay.
in my time here,
Okay.
going to 10.
It says-
And it was, we have one item, so we're just gonna go.
Got it.
They didn't really make a motion or anything, they
Yeah.
just went.
Okay. I was just trying to
They
understand the
discussed.
process.
Yeah, for sure,
a little
easy, yep.
And a lot of times you can have a significant amount of agenda items and they all go
Pretty quickly.
5 minutes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Okay.
So,
Yeah, some of those big 13 ones only, we'd still get out. Like I've mentioned, like our meetings are typically more like
This
this,
one?
where we're in essence done,
Yeah,
right?
Right.
And you usually are getting out. You guys just came on board during really heavy items. So, yeah.
I like the comment, Commissioner Henry's comment about, meeting minutes and relatively trivial comments. I think it is, if you give us paper.
Hey,
You could
no
give the
paper.
paper back to you with our comments on it.
Yeah,
Or.
Text
yeah,
it to-
a note or text, whatever, prior to. And then it's just the chair managing the pre-meeting. So, but I don't know, I think a half hour, as long as I've been here, maybe a meeting, maybe 2, a half an hour wasn't enough, but pretty far and few between.
Okay.
Anyway,
I agree with that, but I think there's still possibility, maybe you'd want to make some allowance in what we're allowed to do.
I'm okay with that.
And we
yeah,
can
we
say,
can write something in
And we
to
could s-
allow flexibility.
Yeah, we
But
could
but
say
I know
it's
it
exception.
involves the public announcement, that's.
Yeah.
And if we
okay.
want to make it a flexible thing where we can have the chair allow for more time if needed, maybe in that statement, we can also state it's on rare occasion.
In the pre-meeting?
Yeah.
it says that.
and the
Not
fact that some
consistently.
commissioners obviously have jobs. Some of
Right.
you, unfortunately. Too bad. Anyway,
And
if you're not
kids.
there for the first 15 minutes, that's probably okay as well.
Yeah.
Do we publish, we
If-
publish
if
the
we have a
agenda for the whole year.
Yeah.
Is the time listed on that agenda?
The time for the planning commission meeting is,
Okay.
yes.
But not the pre-meeting?
Not the pre-meeting. So there is precedent to do it. So for example, the RDA of the city, it changes every month. Every month they have a different time.
Yeah, we should do that.
Let's not do that.
Obviously, we'd want to keep this as consistent as possible, but the RDA goes 4 o'clock, 5:30, 5 o'clock. It's maddening to do an agenda for the RDA.
All right.
Any other questions, suggestions, additions?
I have something on E.
Yes.
Okay.
I think this is just the way we run business, but I noticed on after E10 there, it says that in the last line, the chair may change the order of business or consider matters out of order if there's no objection. When that came up a while back, I think we took a vote on it, even though I don't think there was any objection. I think we could just expedite things a little
Yeah.
bit if we
Yeah, I,
followed that.
that was me being overly cautious and saying take a vote.
And maybe that wasn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
I've got on number one, just a note that we don't do this.
On E?
Yep,
Wait,
E1?
yep.
procedure statement.
Oh.
So
It was-
either we should take that out or we should do it. I'm not saying we should do one or the other, but.
That's kind of
Is that
interesting.
something you
I almost
wanna
wonder if-
verbally read every time?
I almost wonder if we take that out. I mean, I don't know if we need to read the appeal process, because if we vote something down, aren't we, we're gonna give them, I don't know. You tell me what
You won't,
happens.
you probably won't give anything.
So if we say no,
I mean, yeah, let me rephrase that. Yeah, we would probably send them some written thing that's saying, sorry, your application has been denied. I don't think we have an official,
No, but I think Maren may have
Yeah,
done
stated
that
the
a couple
procedure.
of meetings ago.
State the
that-
procedure that you can follow now. once you've
Pardon
been-
me?
I know in the past, after we've denied something, we've stated the procedure that they can go through to.
okay.
Yeah, so-
Maybe it doesn't include the process for appealing, but procedure of, we'll go to your agenda item, we'll
Maybe it's
call the
something,
applicant, we'll discuss it, call the applicant up for their comments, that kind of procedure,
I know in the past, Jared
which
Hall
would
has
pretty
stated.
much
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
pertain to every item on our agenda.
yeah,
but
no, yeah, I'm good
not
with that.
appeals.
I'm just saying we don't do the appeal.
Yeah.
We're not
yeah, the
reading the
appeal
process.
side we
of-
don't do,
Yeah.
but
I
for
wonder,
sure.
is-
I think we take that out, in my opinion. on
That, yeah, that's, we'll look into it and see if that's something, if there's a way to either do it, or just take it out.
That, real quick, before we move on past that last sentence, was it Ned who was just talking about if there's no objections from any member of the commission? Or a majority vote of the commission? To me, that sounds, I don't know, it feels a little redundant.
Sorry, say that.
I
What
had to
section
read that
again?
several times before it made sense.
It's just after 10, this paragraph after
You
10.
like it?
Oh,
If there is an objection, then you can have a vote and then majority still prevail.
But it says or, so I don't have to do that. If I was the chair and there was an objection, I can just say we're done. Or I can say, wait, I kind of feel like I want a majority vote on this. It's or. I don't have to.
so I think how this works is so, say like Maren comes in and changes all of them, just moves them all over the place, right? And somebody objects. Then I think it would go to a vote.
And-
Yeah, I don't think that's how it's
I think
worded
what this
necessarily.
is saying is that the wording doesn't
Yeah.
really tell you that. I think that's what we
Yeah,
wanted.
probably, it probably isn't worded that way, but that's probably how it should be.
One of
If there's an objection. Yeah.
So maybe should we
Well, it
reword
says,
it?
the chair may also change the order of business or consider matters out of order if there is no objection from any member of the commission. So if she called, is there any objection for a commission to change this, and
And
someone
there
said,
is.
I object, then we've just,
Then it says.
Then you take a
Or.
vote.
no, it doesn't say then you go, it says or, so that's one or the other.
Or she can choose
If
one
we're
then.
talking-
She can say there's,
Yes, I
everybody's.
guess she could choose,
She could choose.
but if
So
we
the
do the
wording's
first
weird.
one, then we don't do the second one, I think. Or would mean one or the other.
Or she could choose both.
I think it should just be, it should just be
I think you could do
clarified.
How about
both
this?
Also,
We'll just clean it up either
I think
way.
that's what you do, I think you clean it up.
Yeah,
Either
just
way,
just
we'll
clean up
clean
the
it up.
wording.
One of the notes I had in here, which I think we maybe should put in here, is we do roll call vote for some stuff and verbal votes for another. I think maybe we should specify which ones we do that for.
Okay.
And, I mean, this one would be very fast if it was just a verbal majority vote, because we could always say, are we, anybody okay
Yeah.
with changing the thing? Yes, yes, okay, we're changing it. I don't have anything until
I
J,
have something at H, you want before me?
H.
H. Robert rules is H, then the sentence after that says, "Meeting of the planning commission shall generally be conducted according to Robert rules recently revised." Again, can we put a reference or a link? I mean, I feel like I could find all kinds of different versions of Robert rules. I don't know,
So
or refer to page 10 of our book.
I don't
or-
have them. Yeah, so that was one of the things. We'll look into that.
I have a copy of Robert rules from 1996.
It's not that.
If you want to follow Robert's Rules of Orders to the T, we'll be here until midnight every.
No, I don't want to follow, well, that's exactly what I kind of like, can we
That's-
reference which one we like?
Well, I think that's why I like the word generally.
Exactly.
Yeah, because that means.
It says
hey,
generally,
we're-
and then
we're
also-
generally doing it, but,
Generally.
but
I
if
think
if
one
we
of-
missed a step, we're probably okay.
Right.
Yeah. One of the ones, I think Mill Creek said it, it had a good, you guys can go on, I'll try to find it. But it mentions something similar. Because I think there's actually a reduced version of it.
Cliff Notes version.
Kinda,
Of Robert's
Yeah.
Rules?
yeah.
Oh, yeah,
that-
there's a lot of versions, for sure.
And that will, I don't know where it is. It's fine.
Well, I guess maybe the word generally covers that.
Yeah.
I don't, but,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
I don't have anything till the amendment.
I have one for records. B, recording. Well, let's see. Actually, above that,
Oh, records.
minutes. Minutes are public records. Typed minutes have to be kept indefinitely. So I don't know if the city does that or not. That's one.
I can take you
So I
right
was-
to them.
Pardon me?
I can take you right to them.
Yeah, I know. So that would be in that little paragraph after A3.
Okay.
Just put, and maintained indefinitely.
I don't think you put that in there. Why? You're putting a limitation upon yourself where in the future.
No,
In the
it's-
future, there may not be one.
No. This is
If you
state
put,
law.
I
This is
understand,
state law
I
that-
understand it's state law, I'm just saying, why impose
I was
a
going to say, I would say
a
there, the
limitation on
state does have a
yourself?
retention schedule that governs how long we have to keep certain records, and that's in the state retention schedule, so.
Yeah,
So
so we
per
should just
state law.
follow whatever we have to do. I don't think we put,
then instead of putting a time frame, just say per state law.
if we
Again-
say forever, that means in 1,000 years from now, someone's going to say, look, it was the code that you had to keep these.
Well, hopefully they'll update it between now and then.
Yeah.
I know, but if
In
you
5
put
years,
that
they'll look
in
at
here.
it again. Just think, you can remove it after.
I'm saying we just follow the retention schedule of the state and not put anything in this.
I also would say too, with all of these suggestions, I think what our intention is, Zach, is to sit down with our office and come up with a draft now based on these suggestions that we can come back and talk through again. And
Yeah.
so again, we don't need to decide every,
Yeah, no decisions right now. We'll come back with. all
Well, and
sorts
my recording was the same thing, that audio records are maintained as well. And I don't know do you send them to the state's, what is it called? Utah Public Notice website?
That one I don't know. That one would be.
And that's a requirement.
Yeah, that's the
um,
recorder's office.
So, but I agree. There's a lot that shouldn't go in here, or doesn't need to go in here. However, it's nice for the most part, you're not gonna follow this every meeting.
I know, but if we put it in there, then we have to
Yeah,
follow.
well,
it, or we should be
I'm just
following
thinking,
it.
if nothing else, this is great to give to every new member and review it periodically and say, well, what happens to those meeting minutes?
Well, I had that.
It's good administrative things to know.
I think as a rule, you should never impose upon yourself something that you have to do if you don't have to do it.
We're
I
not,
had in this topic too.
we're not imposing this on ourselves.
We are, if you put it in there, we are.
Well, we're already doing it.
I understand we're doing it, but we're doing it because some other body is telling us to do it. We shouldn't impose, I'm fine.
Okay.
Well,
It's fine. We'll look into
To
it.
meet both needs, instead of imposing it and meet the concern, we can say, refer to this reference, we'll follow the state rule, and then just leave it,
Yeah,
right?
well, yeah.
that would cover us, really, if we just say we're following,
Per state law.
per state law, retention schedules.
Do we need to say, and I think I just answered my own question because of other experiences, typically you write how, where, and time frame you're going to keep your minutes. So we should just, on all three of those, say per state law? And then we're good. Okay. Because sometimes they need to be under lock and key, sometimes they need to be,
Oh, yeah, there's no, yeah.
I've got a few more.
Okay.
On attachment one, unless anybody has something before that.
Which one are you on?
Attachment one.
Oh, I might have something before that. Where's attachment one?
My comment on the
Oh, there
attachment
it
one
is.
is you
Yeah,
talk
I have something
about,
before that, real quick. Oh,
this imposes something that we're not doing.
Oh, that's true, for sure. What do you got, Lisa? I'm not in
administrative,
charge, sorry. I shouldn't be.
You don't know, this is discussion.
Hacker?
I mean,
I read
Zach's
this-
not listening to what you're talking about. You're not going to see any of that stuff today.
I read through it twice. I have to ask your permission to speak. I don't do that.
That's
ever.
true, in bold. Do not
Twice.
speak
And I'm
unless,
supposed to
Grant,
Yeah, be
grant you
recognized.
permission to speak, so you're. out
permission
there.
to speak freely for the rest of the meeting.
Commissioner Mokevich?
Number 5, administrative issues. It talks about line 2, establishes no later than 1 PM 2 days prior to the meeting. Is this the same as the current requirements of by 5 PM previous day in which you can submit materials and handouts, or is this just,
So this is the official side, and I need to figure out how we approach this. I need to ask Mark to look into it and see if it's even legal that we can't take handouts at the meeting. You might not be able to review them and make that statement. I questioned it when we were putting it in here, and I still don't know. Because it does seem kind of arbitrary, not necessarily arbitrary, it just feels weird to say, you can come to the meeting and make a public comment, or you can do it ahead of time, but when you do it ahead of time, you have to submit it by like 1 PM, right?
but if there isn't a deadline, I can see how it could become a stall tactic. I could walk up to each meeting and say, I want to submit this, it's too big for you to review, I want you to table the topic until you have time to review it.
But at the
Because you know
same
we do
time.
that, Murray.
So I mean, at the same time, if it's an administrative action, I can't believe I'm gonna say this in a public meeting, is that most comments in administrative action are public clamor, right? You can't, unless it has something of real substance, you really can't take that into consideration in making the decision. It's, does it meet the law? If it does, it's approved.
But if they hand us, and this doesn't happen here, we're small, we're cordial with everyone. But if someone handed us a big pack and I wouldn't know if it was public clamor or if it was legitimate facts, and I wouldn't have time to review it, so technically, we should postpone the.
Yeah, and I think that's where we would probably, I'd want to get some more advice in reviewing that. I don't know. Maybe I need more staff to review things while at the meeting. That's what I'll get at. Just kidding.
I think that's legitimate. Commission or staff will summarize the written public input received during the public hearing for the record. That's that last paragraph. Summarize? That's interesting. I don't know. Our minutes are summarized, right? Our written minutes? are
Well, the
summarized?
minutes are, yeah, but it just says the,
Administrative issues, I don't know.
we largely do that. The chair usually asks, ask staff to go over any of the questions. That's pretty much what we're doing there, is summarizing and going through the comments that were made.
It was just a little unclear. I think it could be written a little more clear, because when you receive written comments, you usually read the whole comment, don't you?
I do have to read the whole comment. I think that's different than what this is.
Okay.
I don't know. Now I'm rethinking that.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you, appreciate that. Here's my comments.
Can you summarize those, please?
I will,
Just kidding.
I will summarize them if I can. We have in E, a section called Order of Business. And then it tells us, read procedural statement, conflict of interest, approval of minutes. Then,
Wait, are you in attachment one?
no, I'm not, sorry.
Oh, you went back.
I am going to talk about attachment one. I went back to E.
Okay.
We have order of business, which has 10 things. Then we have G, which is order of procedure, that tells us to look at attachment one, which then tells us a different order of business.
Yes, it's different, yes.
So this one, so my first step here is procedural statement. Read the procedural statement. My first step here is the chair offers a brief introduction of a meeting purpose and composition of the commission. This is all redundant. We need to take E, G, and attachment one and make it one consistent meeting format.
Well, and
Or-
Commissioner, number 16, we're looking at the findings of facts on the attachment one.
Oh,
Another-
yeah.
and where
Well,
else?
it's not consistent. It's definitely not consistent. Or we need the order of business to be in E, and then if the attachment one is just for each agenda item, then that would be fine too, but it's not. It's going through the whole meeting.
It is going through the whole meeting.
So we should do that. So it actually tells us how to run the meeting because it's inconsistent in the same document.
Okay.
I don't really love like how three's laid out, but we're definitely on item number N. It says develop a written and reasonable statement supporting the decision. So if we're supposed to be doing that, then.
I mean, we do it for you.
Yes, but we're not doing that. You mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's an issue there. But I also think that if you read through attachment one, it starts the meeting, it doesn't end the meeting. So again,
It's fine, it's fine, it just goes on.
Well, like in number 4, we're looking at the minutes, and typically we do that much earlier, as it's stated in E,
Yeah,
order of
yeah.
business.
So I think that's enough comment. You get what I'm saying?
I clearly didn't write this.
Yeah. I'm done. That's it for me.
You sure?
No. Oh, I'm not done.
Oh.
We probably should put in here, if we're going to allow emailed comments, I wonder if we should be putting that in here, or
Probably.
remote comments.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
what? Say that again?
If we're allowing people to comment remotely, we don't have that in here either. So we should probably allow that or disallow it, either way, but it doesn't hurt, I don't think, to have it.
Right. Okay.
Well, this gets down into the point on that of asking for testimony of those supporting, those neutral, and those.
Yeah, I didn't like that
That's
either.
weird. Don't you think?
And we've never done that.
No, that's why I
That's
said that
weird.
whole 3, I didn't comment on everything in
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
but You
it's
should cross it out and rewrite the whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know where most of this came from.
Kind of
So-
along most of those lines, though, it does say the chair requests, or wait a minute. After that, the rebuttal by the applicant. I don't remember us giving the applicants that opportunity.
Not
We
but
did a few years ago, we were doing that.
We,
I almost think you need to, some of those public comments, like we had with the Dodge thing,
Can be very
were
heated.
kind of out in left field, some of
Yeah.
them. And I think it probably would have been good for him, or maybe the staff needed to say, that's not what we're talking about, and clarify. And,
Well, I could see that applicant rebuttal could be after public comment that we ask, group all of the comments that need answers. And some of those come from staff and some of those come from the applicant. And which could be construed as a rebuttal, I guess.
We usually, you probably aren't paying attention to staff when during a public comment portion. But we are usually frantically writing,
Yeah.
like, what's going on.
Yes.
And then I'm usually checking off as either things are addressed up here or we address it over here.
Yeah.
So that's why I go through books
Well, and I know you've addressed the comments, that's not what I'm
Yeah, okay,
saying.
okay.
I think if we're gonna leave this rebuttal in there and it's a required thing, I think after all this is done, we should actually come up with a document that is given to
You
the
can
chair.
actually
That
follow.
you can actually follow,
Yeah.
so we
No, I
follow
agree.
whatever we come up
Yeah.
with.
And again, it probably
Yes.
needs some
Yeah.
flexibility.
Because I have
to allow-
one,
Yeah.
Ned has one,
Right.
Maren has one.
Yep.
Yep.
And I think that's.
And they're all different.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that's important to do. Yep.
Yep.
However, every meeting is also different.
Well, that's what you
Yeah.
need to allow
Yeah.
some flexibility.
is.
But general guidelines.
But if we're saying, hey, you need to read this, then we should probably read whatever that is. And if we're supposed to follow these things, we should follow those things. And like, if we're supposed to give the rebuttal to the applicant, we need to be doing that.
Well, I notice the chair requests applicant presentation too. We usually just invite the applicant up and ask them if they can.
And they
I
can,
guess that's only if we disapprove their request.
Well,
What
this
are you
is,
gonna rebut if,
Well, they're
this is
rebutting
for
the
public comment, though.
testimony.
This is during the public comment
Yeah.
period.
right, so like I said, he gets, the applicant can come back up and say, I can answer that question.
That gentleman.
And
Only-
is that a
only-
rebuttal?
Only if you
Yes.
allow them.
But
That's a
Are we
rebuttal.
allowing them
You
that
know,
opportunity?
We
I
don't
think?
not allow them.
well, so
So do
that's
they know
one of the
they
things
have
is
that
that
right?
you could say, no, you're not coming back up.
But some applicants may not be as brazen as some have been, where they're like, can I, can I say this?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, we should either leave it in there or not. If it's in there, we have to do it,
No, we don't.
which is fine. Well, you're saying if we have a thing here, Ned, that says,
Here's one right here. The chair restates the motion. This
Yeah.
is the only place I've ever been in
I don't think we should,
40 years that the chair ever,
I agree, I don't
restates
think
the
we should
motion.
do that. But what I'm saying is, this says, I'm gonna read it. Chair reads agenda item and outlines the elements of conducting a public hearing. They're outlined as files, boom, boom, boom. This is saying what we do, not what we can do if we want to.
That's why we don't like it.
So that's why I'm saying we should take it
That's
out
why
if we're
I
not
say
gonna
we
do
need
it,
to
or we
allow
should
some
leave it in, and if we
flexibility.
do, we should do it. And that's why I think we should leave this less specific when we can, so we're not held to something that we don't have to be held to.
brevity has got a lot of goodness to it.
I agree.
However, you also like some structure that gives you an opportunity to do the things that you need to do.
No, I agree. So
Well,
maybe
and
we
I-
should
and I
put,
think with
the chair may allow the applicant
And I
to
think.
do whatever, I don't know.
I mean, so I think I'm getting the idea of where we're going, and we can start writing up a draft. It will not be at the next meeting because that's heavy. It's a heavy meeting, just so you all know. But it will we could probably put it on the 20th, maybe, depending on how busy Mark is.
By the way, the applicant rebuttal is twice, once during public comment, once after, just for the record.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
No, isn't it all great topics? I love it.
Yeah, no, this is good. I'm glad we went through this and had this discussion, because this has been something on my radar for a while, and I only have so many penguins on the iceberg that is my brain. And if I can get one penguin off the iceberg, it's great. So, yeah.
Should there, I got one more comment I just thought of. There probably should be a
Putting us
penalty.
right.
There's
Putting
probably a
us
penalty
on.
for people speaking without being recognized by the chair.
Well, some chairs would probably give you. Me, I'm not quite that formal.
Like $5 or something every time you talk out of
Quarter
turn.
in the-
No, what you're really,
We'll just
I know
have a little drink.
I know what you're really saying. You're like, can I give you $5 to tell Lisa she can't talk?
Commissioner Richards, do you have anything to say about this?
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
Is there a second? We adjourn at 7:40 PM.
You do have to provide a time, Mr. Richards, but it's fine.